Coming up is a video Jane and myself did on Facebook Live. We're going to publish them here on YouTube as well. So as well as liking, sharing and commenting on this video here on YouTube, you can also come and enjoy watching us on Facebook. We'll be there, you can ask questions, you can join in the banter, and it's quite light, quite fun, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it. So follow my channel here on YouTube and follow us on Facebook too. Okay,
So
right.
meanwhile, we'll have a cup of tea.
We'll have a cup of tea and wait for
And
you.
take note. This says gorgeous. And look, Mr. Hamilton Parker, take note. Gorgeous.
Okay, mine's just got Fox on it or something.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Okay, we got a few people joining us. Hi there, Michael. Just starting. Right, tonight we're going to talk about
Astral travel.
astral travel.
Out-of-body experience.
Out-of-body experiences. All right. Okay, that's going to be quite an interesting one. Hopefully people will give some comments too, because that will get the conversation moving a little bit more. So what do you mean by astral travel in your mind, Jane, then?
Well, I've had an experience of it when I've actually come out of my body and looked at myself looking down from the ceiling. And
When was this?
I'm going back a few years ago, about 15 years ago. I was aware of my consciousness looking at myself from the ceiling, and a part of me was quite frightened and I wanted to get back into my body. And then I suddenly didn't panic, and I could actually see myself in bed and looking down on myself. And it was so like your spirit and your consciousness actually very lucid,
So,
very real.
I've had this happen to me, but what happened when it happened to you? You're talking about like 15 years ago, so when we were still together then.
Well, we've always been together 30 years.
I mean, but, yeah,
Who did you think I was with before?
yeah, but
then?
I mean, when mine happened when I was a teenager. I mean, it quite often does happen when you're a teenager. Out-of-body experiences spontaneously happening. So were you under stress?
No, I wasn't under stress.
Often it happens under stressful situations.
I wasn't under stress at all. I've had many experiences like that. Even as a child, seeing a bright orange light follow me around, I could actually put my hand through it.
Yeah. So this was an out-of-body experience, which is totally different to what you're talking about.
I did see it out of my body as well, but I didn't get any loud bangs, which you said you had.
Well, what happened with me, it was a completely different thing. I would have probably saved this till a little bit later on, till more people came online. But my out-of-body experience happened when I was, well, I've had a number, but the main one, and the most striking, was when I was about, I suppose I must have been about 14 years old. And a lot of people sort of say they have those experiences at 14 years old. And I was, I just suddenly felt myself above the bed, looking down at myself, and could see myself there. And I turned away and started walking towards the wall. You know, I think I'd read some Lobsang Rampart, who talked about, he's a bit of a nutcase, but he talked about, you know, you read that at 14, but
light attracts light. Yeah, Craig.
He talked about out-of-body experiences, so I was kind of aware that
lucid.
I was lucid. I was aware that I was having an out-of-body experience, and saw myself behind the bed, then turned around and started to move towards the wall, and felt as though I was pushing myself through the wall. And then suddenly I panicked about what was happening, because obviously the thought you get is, "Am I dead?" You know, and I looked round and saw myself in bed looking almost dead, like I always look dead when I'm sleeping. And then there was sort of a bang, a panic. I sort of shot back into my body. It was like a whip cracking.
That probably
with
was
a loud bang.
That probably was the neurons in the brain.
Well, who knows? But there was a definite loud auditory bang, as loud, I would say, as someone firing a gun in the room.
No, I never
It was
had
just
that.
that loud. I've spoken to others. Vic, you know, Vic Rigby. He said he had exactly the same thing.
No.
When he had the
I've actually
out-of-body experience. And we've got many people here, because we get problems with our comment line. So I don't know how many we got. Give us
for hearts.
give us a thumbs up if anybody, whoever's here with us at the moment, so we can see who's online with us.
We've only got Michael at the moment.
Looks like we've got Michael Beeston. Hi, Michael. You're all on your Todd at the moment. I think maybe you're having an out-of-body experience and it's just you with us. It looks like that's yours. A couple.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, we have got people with us. It's difficult for us because we can't see the comments. And for some reason, when we're doing it, well, that's okay. That's all right. We do have people with us. We thought we were all alone.
Is there anybody there?
Which is a nuisance, really, because
It's coming up now.
okay. So if you put a comment or two, that will help us know that you're here, because we can't tell who's here until you put a comment, I think. So so that was my first out of body experience, really, when I was about 14 years old. And
right, when I was a nurse, a lot of children that in their experience have come out of their body, and there's one little boy that told me there was a shoe on 3 windows going up from the ward. I was quite intrigued with this because he'd had major surgery, and we actually, and the other male nurses, we actually found the shoe, and there's no way he would have known that.
Seriously, that's one that's quoted by Ian Wilson in his book.
No, that's true.
Because I've quoted that on TV
No,
before.
that was actually true, because I worked in a children's hospital in Southampton.
Oh, well, maybe he got that story from one of the other nurses. There was a group of you that saw it.
Yeah.
Because they said that they couldn't know that the shoe was wedged on the ledge.
No, it was going up 3 wards up, because it was a very small hospital.
Yeah.
And there's like a white plimsoll. It was like that.
It was a plimsoll that was quoted
it's a white
in the book.
plimsoll. And
that was quoted by Ian Wilson, I remember.
Well,
but he had done, I know that a lot of out-of-body research has been done at Southampton. Because of Dr. Fenton, I think it is, at Southampton, they set some experiments up and actually on the top of Southampton Hospital, they've got something on there to check out if people have had an out-of-body experience and gone above the hospital.
There has been a lot of research on it from Southampton University, out-of-body experiences.
And those are particularly out-of-body experiences connected with near-death experiences.
I bet your body like my body when you met my body.
Actually, waking up every morning is like a near-death experience.
You speak for yourself, Mr. Snorer.
But so that's the theme tonight. So if any of you would like to make comments, or want to ask any questions,
or if you've had experience of it, or you've had a strange phenomena that you weren't quite sure about late at night,
because it is quite a common experience, actually. I mean, when I wrote that column in what's it called in the Scottish Daily Record, and I used to ask people and the Weekly News was another one.
Listen, take note.
What's that?
Someone said that's cruel, Craig.
What is? Talk.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, people used to write in. This was really the first of these columns where people used to write in. You see a lot of them nowadays, but this was sort of right back in the early 90s, wasn't it? And people used to write in with their near-death experiences and out-of-body experiences. And I was amazed just how many people professed to have them. Is that the cat knocking on the door there, or was that the ghost?
He's not having an out-of-body experience trying to get in here. No, but a lot of people, they can say it's through trauma, or it can be something that we have in our consciousness and that the experience and everything. But these things can be quite frightening if you sort of don't know what's happening to you, or the unknown. But it's like when you die, you've still got your consciousness.
Yeah. Well, what it proves is we're not our body, but we are our spirit. And if you look at it, it's in all the traditions throughout the world. I mean, it's in India, because Yogananda, I remember, wrote about having out-of-body experiences and talked about that. It's in Chinese philosophy, because I remember reading the what was it called, the Golden Flower, and which talks about how to cultivate out-of-body experiences. There's a whole yoga tradition about how to have out-of-body experiences too. The Romans have quoted it, and the ancient Greeks, I remember. So there's lots of
Confucius.
No, but I mean, I don't know anything directly with him talking about it, but it's definitely it's throughout all in Amazonian tribes talk about it as a sort of part of their ritual technique, and Mexican backgrounds for the Yahweh Indians and things like that. So everybody does talk about it. It's obviously something that's real. It's not just a fantasy. The skeptics say it's all fantasy, that you can't prove it. If you set a room up and you put an object in another room, the psychic can't tell you what's in that other room through these out-of-body experiences. But, so where does a person go when they have these out-of-body experiences? I mean, is it just limited to this world?
I don't think it is. I think you have experiences in this life that are quite meaningful for you. Everybody has different experiences, don't they? I mean, children, their perceptions are quite innocent, so they're not lying, are they? Like that little boy that saw that shoe going up right up third flight floors on a window that we wouldn't have even been able to see that, and we checked it out.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's true. I mean, there's been a lot of experiments done with children, particularly with near-death experience of children who've, you know, who haven't got preconceptions about what they're expected to see. You know, like a Christian might think, oh, I'm going to go to heaven and see angels. A young child of 4 years old doesn't have that sort of mindset yet, and describes probably more real near-death experiences and out-of-body experiences than an adult might, who might have preconceptions or fantasies, you know.
I think what I would like to know, and probably you would like to know, do animals have out-of-body experiences? How would we know?
Well, you can't tell, of course, because you can't ask them. I mean, it depends what you see. You see, there's ideas put forward about what these out-of-body experiences are. Now, looking at the mystical side of it, the Theosophists were the people that really sort of brought this whole idea to the fore. They were sort of like Madame Blavatsky's lot. They were sort of around at the same time as spiritualism. And they said that what happens is they were the first to talk about the astral body, you know, that we have an astral body that steps into another plane of existence that is in between this physical world and the spirit world, the heavenly world. So there's this extra plane they used to talk about in Theosophy called the astral plane.
Well, I actually have astral travel. That's another one, because my parents were actually in South Africa. They lived over there with my two brothers when they were quite young. And I can remember actually coming up my body and travelling there, and I had all this vapour coming from me. I
get that a lot.
Yeah, well, that's another story. And I saw all this vapour come from behind me, and I was going like speed of light, and I actually saw this restaurant. I've never been there before. Actually, it took me to South Africa. And then I came back and it all faded out. And then when I was in contact, one of my brothers, Timothy, I explained this to him. He said, yes, there is a restaurant that existed like that in South Africa. And it was very, very real.
Existed, past tense.
Well, it existed.
Because that's another interesting thing that comes with this. This is going back to the mystical ideas about it from people like the Theosophists. They say that there is this other astral world in between the earthly plane and the spirit world. There's a separate world. But also through this etheric or astral world, we can also connect through time. And this is where this whole idea of the Akashic Record comes in. You heard about that, haven't you?
Yes, I know
that there's like a universal memory that we can connect to throughout a body experiences. And that most people, well, all people, the theory goes, all people can have astral body experiences while they're asleep, but they're not conscious of it. They're having unconscious out-of-body experiences. So sometimes people who have done a lot of work with this, like Moody and people like that, have said that sometimes you will see people in the astral plane who are walking around asleep. They're still asleep in their normal life.
Yes, remember the 7 astral planes too?
The 7. Yeah, 7 comes up a lot in Theosophy, because that was another thing they were very interested in, the 7 rays and things. But the difference is sometimes we haven't. Perhaps we have this all the time.
He doesn't know everything, but I do.
well, sometimes we have these experiences, perhaps when we're asleep. And other times we have them when we're conscious. That's why to get into an out-of-body experience, really, the techniques for getting into it, for example, are through lucid dreaming. That's waking up while you're sleeping. That's it for astral travel during sleep rather than on the operating table. Yeah. So
perhaps we can astral travel to another dimension.
Well, yeah. Again, this was all experimented with a lot, particularly with a guy called I can't remember how to pronounce his name. He was an American psychic. He used to do a lot of paintings as well. Imago Swan, I think is right. I don't know if it was Swan or Swat. Imago Swan, I think his name was, who worked with all the Americans when they were doing the remote viewing of Behind the Iron Curtain stuff, you know. And they were doing astral travel, working on the idea of astral traveling and trying to go and look at other places, look into silos and things to find out what the Russians had. and they got into this thing where they started looking at other planets. You know, if we can astral travel to Russia and get information, can we astral travel to Mars and get information? You know, and I think that's when they started doing that. They closed the project down because they thought it was going a bit bonkers at that point. But you know, it's an interesting concept, it's an interesting idea, isn't it?
I think people get confused with remote viewing or astral travel.
Yeah, they do. I think you're right. Yeah, because how would we? Well, they are very, very linked, aren't they? Really, the idea of astral travel is you physically go in what we call the etheric body, and the etheric body is like a duplicate of the physical body. Some say it's connected to the physical body by a silver cord. A lot debate that. I've never seen a silver cord.
Or have I?
And that, so there's a lot of fantasy that gets involved in this, but it might be true, you know. But that's not universal throughout all the different traditions around the world. They don't all talk about that. That was another one brought in by the Theosophists, I think.
It's the spiritualists.
And spiritualists too, yeah. So I think that's probably misconception, personally. But, you know, maybe, I don't know, I can't tell. But I'm just, you don't hear the same thing being talked about in Amazonian descriptions or in the Taoist ones, which I think are some of the most interesting people that looked into all this. And I've lost my track now. We were talking about remote viewing, weren't we?
Yeah.
So, so you see, remote viewing is a form of clairvoyance, isn't it? Clear seeing. It's seeing without the use of the normal senses, right? So that can be done without having to leave the body. I mean, you can do that by sitting in meditation.
Well, it's the visualization, isn't it? And then you're actually blending your energies and your thoughts and actually seeing it. I call it my psychic TV screen when I do that.
Yeah, it's a bit like that, isn't it? I mean, I get that as well. Like when you're meditating, I mean, I think a lot of people that do psychic work get this sort of like, you've described it as a TV screen. It could be described as hypnagogic dreaming, like an image that appears with thousands and thousands of pictures. Do you get that?
Well, it depends in that. If I really concentrate, I mean, for example, when I found 27 million for somebody that was famous, I done that remote viewing with that.
And you did that while you were sat with the client?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And when we did some experiments in the circle, I remember, I don't know, I can't see everybody's name, unfortunately, because we still got a bit of a frozen screen here. So we'll see, I might be able to reply to some of your comments later. But if any people that have been here that were in my circles, I remember we did a whole series of remote viewing experiments where we set things up and put objects in other buildings around different places. And then the circle would say, right, there's an object hidden. I'm not going to tell you what it is or where it is. And we got some amazingly accurate results with it, really. Considering people, you know, were just training, really. And it, you know, it's proven to me that remote viewing can definitely work, you know. And astral travel, yeah, well, you know, you can't deny your own experience, can you?
No, if you think you've got to go back, you don't learn well, you can learn things from books, but you've got to go from your own personal experience with things, because psychic people like myself from experience, you're born like it. You don't quite understand it. You think everybody can see auras and things like you can, and it's not till you get a teenager and older you realise not everybody else is the same like us. Yeah, and that's again what the Nadi said to me. It says you assume that everybody can see through the third eye just as you can, but of course people can't. So we try to teach people how to do that, you know. And I think, well, I've run out. I don't know, I think that's very unusual for you. You can talk for a bit. Why? Tongue-tied, are we, Mr. Parker? Right. So, where did we get to? What were we talking about? Well, we're talking about remote viewing, and we're talking about astral travel, and we're talking about different people's perceptions and how people perceive things through their own personal experience. I mean, being spiritual is being part of nature, isn't it, really? And it's being part of tuning into each other. And I think the most important lesson really is having good values, being good human beings, have compassion in your heart, have love, but doesn't mean you've got to be a fool, does it? No, but I'm just thinking around this sort of astral travel idea while you're talking there. About the Barnum effect. Barnum effect? Yes. Oh, well, yeah, we went and saw that movie, Barnum, you know. You've changed the subject. But we went to see, entitled to? It's a musical. We didn't realise it was a musical. I would hate musicals, but it was all right. It wasn't too bad. But the skeptics say that all this psychic work is the Barnum effect, right?
that there's something in it for everybody, you know.
Freak show,
basically you make things fit. And then we saw the Barnum thing, and it's all freak shows, and there's all deception and lies. And I thought they put that forward as a scientific theory.
Well, most of the mediums and the psychics work very hard, and healers very hard, and I would say they were freaks.
Yeah,
because they're dedicated to self-to-service.
Well, if you look anything up like astral travel, out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences on Wikipedia, everything is described as pseudoscience, right? That's because it don't agree with their idea of science, their idea that anything that can exist is the material world. You see, the scientists will say, this is nonsense, because they say, no way can thoughts through telepathy exist outside the body. No way can consciousness, our awareness, be separate from the body. As far as they're concerned, all our awareness is generated by the body. It's a side effect of the body. And when the body's dead, consciousness is gone, right? But people like us, who are all here, hopefully you might agree with this, perhaps look at it a different way. That maybe consciousness works through the human body, that the human body is a bit like a television, you know, it receives the awareness from outside of ourselves, you know. And that's why when we actually astral travel, what we're actually doing is going into our real state, you know, our state that is pre-body.
And it might be a theory, another theory of scientists that I know, that it's all quantum and things.
Yeah, well, we talked about this before, because, you know, perhaps our awareness is nothing to do with physical reality at all, but it exists on another order of reality, something like the quantum field or even the quantum field itself, you know. But it's definitely, you know, I mean, they say, oh yeah, consciousness is just a byproduct of the body. I mean, and this most incredible thing, the most incredible thing the universe has created.
I got one hell of a body.
I got one hell of a consciousness. Yeah. So anyway, so we've gone off, but that, in a way, you know, that's why, you know, so people would say, you know, oh, what's the validity of astral travel? You know, it's all fantasy, say the materialists. But actually, what you are experimenting with there, surely, is the nature of human consciousness, an aspect of our human consciousness, the fact that we are a soul encased within an etheric body that simultaneously is superimposed upon the human body, you know. So we are not the body.
Let's have a few hearts and give us encouragement to our bodies. Come on, I know you can do it.
I want to know how many people are here. Yeah, so that's a shame we've lost the thread again here. It's a nuisance. We can't see all your comments. We've got some. Let's have a look and see what I've got. Hellos and hellos. Time travel, someone's talking about there. That was quite interesting.
It's an angry one.
Oh, cool. I don't know what someone's angry about.
I bet that's Danielle.
Yeah, oh, I bet. Yeah. Yeah, people have had similar experiences. These are the ones we're picking up here. Animals, someone talked about, yeah, they dream. Yeah, okay, that's going back to the early part of what we were talking about there. I'm just going to put a little X or something and just see if I can trigger it to... Okay, so yeah, well, I think you can put comments if you want. So if you've got any questions, put them in, or any ideas, you know, that are different, or may disagree with what we say. You know, you might think, well, you know, no, they're wrong. You know, there's no proof of this. You know, we are just our bodies. When you're dead, that's it. End of story. And everything else is fantasy.
Well, it's the same like mediums. They prove that life consists from the human soul, that it continues on, don't they, by their proof?
Yeah.
And that's...
Well, actually, when you think about it, all these ideas that we're talking about now, they started around about the same time that Darwin came up with the idea of evolution, right? And actually, he didn't even come up with the idea of evolution. I mean, it was
Russell Wallace.
Russell was his first name? Russell Wallace. Yeah,
yes.
Russell Wallace came up with. He was a spiritualist who came up with the idea. And he said, "Oh well, I agree with that." He put the idea to Darwin and said to Darwin, you know, about this what natural selection was his what he came up with. And Darwin thought, "Oh crikey, this is too close to my ideas. I'm going to have to publish my ideas soon." And Wallace said, "Yeah, we have natural selection," but he said that the mind could not be explained by his ideas of evolution, you know, and this is before Darwin published, you know. And actually, when you look also in the history of these things, way back, they were talking about the idea of natural selection at that time before Darwin put it all together, you know. So, I don't think our consciousness can be explained by natural selection and survival of the fittest. The body can, but our consciousness is something separate that jumps from lifetime to lifetime.
Well, I believe in the future, I'm talking about the future, that your dreams will actually reflect on the wall, because we're going to be so advanced now in the 21st century. So your thought patterns will actually go on the wall.
Well, maybe, but do we really want that? Do we want to plug ourselves into all this Facebook?
You won't plug yourself in.
Well, you'd have to,
naturally.
You'd have to be plugged in somehow.
They've got TVs coming out now that it's like wallpaper that you can peel off the wall.
But we do. I mean, we do have a pretty wondrous mind without having to worry about science fiction or things like that. I mean, our minds are capable of so much more than I think we give ourselves credit for. I mean,
that's a very interesting one, Katie. I tend to experience sleep paralysis and can't tell when I'm in the body or out of it. It'd be great if this could develop into a consciousness trip somewhere. Can I answer that one?
Well, that's quite interesting.
That's very interesting. That one there.
Okay. So the sleep paralysis is an interesting thing because, I mean, there is a condition where the brain the brain has a function to stop us thrashing about in our dreams. So what it does when we go to sleep and we're dreaming about running down the street, instead of acting it out and running in bed, as it were, our brain switches off the body. So it's like it's at the back of the brain, I believe it is, which actually sort of stops the brain, stops the body moving around in your dreams.
You freeze.
So you kind of freeze, but you don't paralyze. But some people, and this is a condition that also linked with sleepwalking and narcolepsy, that area of the brain doesn't switch off properly, right? So, and sometimes tension and tiredness can cause this too. So what happens is they wake up, and that back of the brain is waking up a bit slower. Now, it's only seconds, but it appears to the person that's in sleep that it seems to be a long period of time. So basically what happens is you wake up, but you can't move your body, which is terrifying, because I have had it happen once, and you wake up and you can't move. And what you want to do is scream or shout out or make a and you can't move a muscle.
The Victorians used to think it was, what do they call
Old
them?
hag.
No.
Syndrome.
Incubines.
Yeah, incubines and succubines.
And
yeah,
that's what they used to believe in.
Well, one of the results of that is that you're awake, and the fear creates a nightmare. And sometimes these can be very frightening. And they talk about the old hag syndrome, where a spirit sits on your chest, because you get a pressure on your chest when this happens, because it affects the breathing as well. I mean, if it happens, by the way, the way to break it, because the eyes are not affected by that same part of the brain, if you move your eyes from side to side, it will set the trigger off and set that part of the brain working again. So you literally just move your eyes from side to side.
You mean the REMs in the brain?
No, it's not to do with REMs. Just actually move the eyes. Actually, it probably is as well, because the eyes aren't affected when the body's asleep, is it? Because the eyes move around still. So you're right. Actually, yeah, it's the REMs. But so that triggers it and will break a near-death experience. No, it's like a near-death, but we'll break that.
It's very frightening for
that
people.
Paralysis. Yeah, it's a very horrible thing. Very common as well, actually. But to the person having that experience, it's nasty. And also, I think the astral travel type thing's a bit like that, because the body is kind of in that paralysis state when your mind and your spirit leaves the physical body.
Yeah, because
so I don't know how you asked about. I think Kate, you asked about how you could develop it. Meditation and knowing about sleep paralysis helped me conquer the terror associated with sleep. Oh yes, you've had the terror, yeah, and I'm sure that you're right. Actually, the meditation and knowledge about it definitely would make a difference. But remember that little hint about moving the eyes. If you can remember that, if you've woken and you're conscious enough to think, it will break it quickly, and that's a technique that doctors tell people to do as well. But yeah, not a very nice feeling, that. But that is more of a brain thing rather than a spirit thing. It's an actual function of the brain that a lot of people, have that problem with sleep paralysis.
But some people, if they astral travel and they come back into the body, they do have a wonderful experience, actually see spirit people.
In what respect, Bob?
Well, I can remember once when I astral travelled and I came back, I had a cat on the bed. And I saw somebody sitting on the bed. It was a bright light, and it looked like it was made up of 1,000 stars.
Yeah.
And the cat was purring, because first thing you do is put your hand up because you think, what's this? You know. And it was beautiful because the cat saw it as well. So it wasn't my imagination.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, no, well, I'm not saying any of it is, because, you know, when we have these out-of-body experiences, we're connecting with the spirit world, aren't we? That's going to be, we're connecting with the astral world, and what I was talking about, the Akashic Record and the memories of past, present, and future. So we're linking with that idea of being able to see the past. And so we're basically connecting to the cosmic internet, really, aren't we? Although, you see, my thought is, do you really need to take the whole pranic body? Okay, we have this extra body
it's around about us. Pranic energy.
Yeah, but talk of the spirit body, you know, the duplicate spirit body. Do we have to actually move that out of our body to experience these things? Because we can experience these things without having to astral travel. You see, so you can experience those same states of awareness just by looking into yourself as well as stepping out of the body. You know, they're two separate. Like when a person leaves the physical body, for a momentary period of time, they're in the material, physical, objective world around us. But then they go into these other dimensions of consciousness anyway. You know, what I've described as the astral world or the heavenly worlds or even the hell worlds. You've stepped out into another dimension of existence. So do you really need to step into that at all?
There's no such,
my question.
There's no such place as hell. How can we live in here?
Well, I think there's negative planes of existence as well.
Well, negative people create that.
They say there's three. I think there are three worlds, but not a world that's you can't get out of. You know, that you're condemned to forever or anything like that.
Well, it's like the Indian people think everything's an illusion while we're here, don't they?
Yeah, but it's an interesting thing, this whole concept of the, you know, the astral body, you know. I mean, I can see auras, and I know you can too. I mean, if I look at my hand, you know, and I look at them sort of like this sort of thing, and I can feel the light between the fingers and things like that, and see it at night, you know, and it's clear and self-evident to me. It's not something I'm thinking about or something. I can see it with my eyes.
It's a natural process.
And that's not.
It's like a living energy around your
it's not
body.
After images or anything like that, or it's not optical illusions from looking at something too long. I can see a physical light between the fingers, which I can move around, and it's fibrous and it's all lit up.
Well, you can see,
and I can see it. I can't see it all the time, but
it's like when I go to pictures, I can see people's auras above their head, and then I look and I think, that person's not very well.
Although that can be an optical movement, because if you put something against a strong light,
yourself, no, I see it as it is.
But so you know, when you look round the hand or round a person, you'll see this energy field, you know, subtle energy field. Now that is the body of light. That is this astral body.
That's what I was describing.
Yeah, exactly.
That person sat on the end of the bed, made of 1,000 stars, and it was very see-through like that. Because first of all,
an energy body.
Yeah, like an angel, but really big, no wings. But it was set there, but they're very fat. That an animal saw it and looked up and purred. It was really...
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, because I'm sure they must be tuned in a bit to this idea of energy, because they're working on an intuitive level, aren't they?
Well, of course, the animals have sixth sense.
Yeah.
Because they need to, don't they, for survival?
Well, yeah. So, I mean, going to the biologists and evolutionists idea, it does make sense to have a sixth sense, doesn't it? It makes evolutionary sense, as they say, you know. But like I say, I'm not into evolution the way they are.
Energy.
I'm just going to put a thing in to see if it moves.
Well, everybody's energy is different in different lights. Would you agree, people?
Everybody's energy is different. Yes.
So you've got the prana energy, you've got meridian lines, all the energy is different.
Oh, you mean the way it looks? I think people's energy is actually different too.
Well, it's like, you know, you go into a room, you can sense anger, can't you? You suddenly look at somebody who's they've got red aura, or you see green above somebody's crown chakra, you know they need peace, or you see a yellow light. It changes.
The physical auric energy will change depending on a person's mood and thoughts. If they're depressed, it will go dark. If they're happy, it will go bright, and so forth. But also, I think the overall energy of a person changes. So if someone is focused all their life on all the negative things of life, as it were, like eating and drinking and bonking and all the rest of it, so their life is just all material, right? Their energy field is very different
Yes.
to a person that might be focused on creativity in the arts or the spirit.
If you're truly a spiritual person, you shouldn't drink, you shouldn't smoke, you should be pure because your body's your temple.
Well, you shouldn't be anything. You are what you are, but people are different.
Pure.
You know, I think it's all connected with this idea of the chakras again. You know, like they talk about the spirit body has these chakras up the spine, right? So you know about this, but I'm explaining it for anybody that's coming in that don't know about this. And each of those chakras up the spine represents a different type of energy. So there's sexual sort of energy at the very base of the spine, spiritual energy at the crown, in the heart. There's the emotional energy in the throat and the third eye. There's creative energy, the solar plexus, the drive of energy drive. And each person is actually focused on one of those levels. Some people's spiritual energy has not climbed the spine through their life, but remains on a lower level or whatever, you know. So, I mean, that's not good or bad. That's just the way we are. We're at different levels of spiritual evolution.
Very many levels of psychic abilities. What people.
Well, that's dependent upon where that energy is in the astral body, in the spirit body, isn't it? Really.
Yeah.
I mean, if your spirit energy is focused on the third eye in the middle of the brain, or on the chakra on the top of the head, which is the crown chakra, then you're going to be much more connected to those astral sort of realms we've been talking about. But if you're focused on the lower levels, which is no harm in that, but if you're focused on the lower levels, and you know, you're going to be focused on the earthly world and what's around you.
Yeah, because it's very hard for spiritual people to live in the 21st century. Because if you go to Japan, they focus on they've got lovely manners, haven't they, and very much respect.
Well, I don't think people in the West particularly mainly
understand it.
Well, they don't understand, they don't respect it.
Yeah.
When people come for readings with us, I mean, there's a lot of people come and they're lovely people, of course, you know, but I've always noticed that in the whole, Indian people, Chinese people, Japanese people, they value it. They treat it with respect. They don't sort of say, all right, come on, tell me what colour underpants I'm wearing then. You know, they're
what
not.
Colour underpants are you wearing?
Blotchy ones.
I hope not.
But, you know, people, they have respect for it, but there's no respect for it here. And it's the same on when you do media. I mean, when we did that one on South Korea, they were really nice to me. Over here, if I do something on the radio or TV, they look down their nose at you. They immediately assume you're a charlatan before you've even opened your mouth.
Television is not looking for the truth. They're too much into reality shows, so they're not looking for anything intellectual.
Nor journalism, nor science come to that, you know. They're all interested in fulfilling the agenda they already have. Yes, there's a conspiracy against us all, folks.
Yeah. So most of the psychic people, mediums, they've dedicated their lives, and it's as if, you know, it's good service, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, anybody that genuinely has worked as a medium will know that it is not an easy path. You know, there's a lot of people claim to be psychics and mediums and tarot readers and so who aren't, you know, frankly. But there are those that have really dedicated their life to mediumship will know that it will attract all sorts of difficulties into your life. You know, you'll be tested, and you'll be tested to the absolute limits of your capability.
If we were going back into Helen Duncan's time, it all had to be hush-hush, and they would do it in what they call a parlour and that. But since television, and I think the first one, Doris Stokes was a marvellous, marvellous woman, because John Stokes gave me away to get married to you, didn't he, Doris Stokes' husband? It was all sort of quiet and hush-hush, but when television brought it out in the media, everybody wanted to be a psychic or a medium.
Yeah, in fact, well, when I first started, I mean, before I met Jane, I was a single parent, and a man bringing up a baby was not something that was normal, and people didn't normally accept that, you know. So I was being scrutinized by the welfare and so forth, because they think, will he manage, you know. So I had to keep spiritualism dead quiet, you know. I didn't want to tell anybody that I was a medium, because a lot of these places have been infiltrated by a lot of born-again Christians who would jump upon anything to do with mediumship as being in league with the devil. So I used to keep it really, really quiet, and I noticed that most mediums didn't make a noise about it, did they? No. Until it got on television, I could have named. I mean, I would have said here in Southampton, I could have probably named in the past about 3 psychics, and there would have been a dozen or so mediums if you were lucky. Really, of those, not many were the tops. But now everybody's a bloody medium.
Well, mediums were born, not made.
Yeah. So anyway, we've gone off topic again.
I've been doing my mediumship over 50 years because I used to be a nurse, and I used to give readings in the staff room to other nurses and everything. And I never wanted it, to be honest. I just wanted to be a missionary nurse and work in South Africa and help others. But when I was a student nurse, I remember going on a ward, and there was a charge nurse, and the first thing he said to me is, you bought your spirit guide, a witch doctor. It was like coming, my dears, out of a psychic closet at that time.
Yeah, I mean the same for me, really, because I mean I didn't want to be a medium by any means. I mean, I got interested in it through Doris Stokes, because I've explained this before, the story. But and then after Doris Stokes, I met Peter Close, who this policeman who then taught me in a circle. And I went along because I wanted to find out about, what this was all about. And if it was real, then maybe if I could do it, then I can prove to myself that it's real. That was the only way I could prove that the spirit world was real, not just by listening to mediums, I felt, but if I could give a message,
Evidence.
Now, if I gave a message and an evidence and it was all coming from my deliberate attempt to give a message, then I knew it was fake. But if I could say things to people that were completely out of this world, then I knew it was real. So that's where when they said, "Oh, now you're going to get involved in spiritualism and you're going to demonstrate from a spiritualist platform," I said, "What is spiritualism?" They couldn't believe it. You're sat in a circle. You'd never heard of spiritualism. No. So the first time I was ever demonstrated was the first time I went into a spiritualist church was to demonstrate from the platform. So I didn't really want to be a medium. I thought it was too dodgy.
I don't know if a lot of you know out there, but we do have our own foundation called Hamilton Parker Foundation, where we feed poor children in India in an orphanage. Now, what I find karmically so strange, well, not so strange, I also used to be a nurse for the mentally handicapped children, and this orphanage is for the mentally handicapped children. And we buy cows so those families can have really a livelihood and everything.
Well, that all came out of the work we're doing with the Nadi oracles as well, but more so because we also, when we look at it, or most of our all of our TV work's been given to charity. If you look at it one way or another,
apart from a few bits of Brown,
apart from a few bits of expenses that they pay to cover travel and things, but That comes really. I mean, if you want to look at any of that, my movie Mystic Journey to India, which if you follow my Facebook, you'll know that I mention it nearly every day. But it is on Amazon Prime, and so if you're an Amazon Prime subscriber, you can go and watch Mystic Journey to India on there for free if you've got Prime, or you can pay to download it. But it's there, and you'll see some of the work that's been done. Why we've got this foundation and what's inspired us, and the work we've done with children and the poor in India is kind of interwoven into that as well.
And you'll see Craig go through the mango groves, and you'll see suddenly a holy man will appear, rishis and yogis, and it's absolutely mind-blowing. It
was it was like Indiana Jones, and we just took a camera along with us and filmed it as we went. My friend Simon came along and filmed it, and we ended up with a movie, and it was absolutely astonishing. So I like people to watch it. I'm not worried about the money. I'm more interested in you go and have a look at it and see what we're trying to do, because I think that more than anything shows the sort of work we've been trying to do.
If there's other mediums watching this, just carry on and do your work. Don't worry about television. Don't worry about being famous. The message really is to help others while you're here, because television is not necessarily interested in the truth, are they?
Oh, they're not interested in the truth.
And it's all edited.
And we were lucky. This program and the one we made about, we're calling it Paranormal Psychics now, but it's called Psychic Britain originally. I mean, that was the only times we've ever really been able to do something without interference from some twit producer that has their own agenda and wants to turn it into something stupid. They always want to turn it into something stupid, like a game show or like a whatever, And all of us psychics have exactly the same problem. We go on television. We just, you know.
So we've done
like
10 times better in
monkeys.
them. We've got our own film production company.
Yeah, that's the only way to do it.
So we're really aiming for spiritual things because it's our wish to have spiritual centers.
And it's great that more of us can get out through things like this Facebook Live, you know. I mean, it's nice to see other psychics and mediums like Lynn there. I see today has been out talking on there, Lynn Gester-Swart, our friend from Psychic News in the past. And, you know, you'll find a lot. And also on YouTube, you know, it's great that we can actually speak to the world properly. What would be nice if we could interact in such a way that we could do readings through this media, but of course you can't do it with typing. You need another video link somehow. I tried it with Skype, but it was crashing
I
too much.
personally like one-to-ones face that you can connect.
Just putting another X in to try to refresh the screen,
because you know, that works for me. I mean, I don't want to be associated with Skyping people or phone lines. I like real people coming to me. Yeah, you like to be face to face, and I like them. I'm the opposite, because I learned first, like I say, the first time I ever did mediumship was at first in a circle and then to stand in front of an audience. So I like to work demonstrating to audience, and I like the idea to use that money that comes from that to give to charity. Because I don't want any money for doing readings. I don't do private readings. If people want private readings, they can come and see Jane, or if you live close enough to Eastleigh, or we've got the people on our website who we reckon are pretty good for, you know, normal phone readings. I always believe it's the spirit world that choose people to come to me, because I usually lay all my emails out, and if I see a blue communication light, then I know the time is right to see that person. So it's very good that I can cherry pick.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. That's what I say. Only see those people that are really in need.
Yeah.
And I've always found this with them, haven't you? When you do readings for people,
keep the hearts going.
Yeah. We know you're there. Then.
Thank you.
Because we can't see the comments now, folks. I'm afraid. I think we've lost those. But I've always found that the best readings come if you really connect with someone that's really in need. And I'm not talking about someone that's got an emotional problem, broken up with a boyfriend type thing, but someone that's really seeking to know the higher meaning of things, you know, seeking to know there really is a spirit world, for example, or seeking to know their meaning and purpose in life. When you get that, and that person's heart's open, I mean, amazing things come through with clairvoyance and
sometimes different languages too. It's not speaking in tongue.
Yeah,
it comes through to give evidential proof.
Yeah, you've spoken in Chinese, I think, to someone.
I've spoken 12 languages.
I've spoken in Urdu. I remember speaking in Urdu. I mean, I don't even know what bloody Urdu was before that.
Pakistani, you know what English is?
But I mean, it happens, you know. And but this is it, because the need is there. When the need is there, the conditions are right. And when people sort of say, "Oh, give me a reading, tell me something about me," nothing.
Selfish.
Nothing will come through. Because that selfish energy don't work. You can't work like that. And the same, we get problems in spiritualist churches. If you get someone that's there just to grab the message and stick their hand up, whatever you say, I've got someone in the spirit with this, and they put their hand up. It's me. It's my neighbour's neighbour. You know, a friend of my neighbour's uncle. No, that just damages it, because it breaks the link. That's not what the spirit was there for.
Or they come up afterwards and say, I think that message was for me. Could you get that person? I said, I'm afraid spirits just left the building.
Yeah, these message grabbers, you know, and the internet's full of that, unfortunately, and that's a great shame, really. But it would still be nice to do something where we could demonstrate. You can't. Yeah, well, maybe, you know, hopefully we can get out there a little bit more and start demonstrating from the platform, because that's how I like to demonstrate.
Oh, you do that, anyway.
Yeah, well, we do it through the Spiritualist Church. We've got one coming up in Camberley soon. But, you know, spiritualism, and you can find that on Camberley's website, Camberley Spiritualist Church in Camberley. Or if you go and have a look, you can come and see us there when we're on it. So I think it's 3 weeks' time or something like that. But we don't do a lot of spiritualism now. We don't, you know, that's before we go to Barcelona. But we don't do a lot of that now, because frankly, I've given up the spiritualism. I'm afraid I just find it's not telling me, it's not inspired anymore. I mean, it was inspired, and it's inspired stuff to read there, and it can be inspiring. But
well, it's people
people
need
need,
churches.
you know,
It's
we've got
people
all
that
this
make
now.
churches.
We've got all the, you know, we've got other ways of reaching people. But which is sad.
Where's those hearts?
So I think we ought to sort of draw it to a close now, because we were talking initially about the astral plane and astral travel. That was our theme tonight. I don't know if there's any more you need to say about that. Just one thought, actually, because people will think, how do you have an astral experience? How would you suggest, if somebody wanted to try to experiment?
Well,
what would you say?
I don't think force it. I think it's like doing a mantra. It's like sending your thoughts and your prayers up and just relax. And it's like when you go into a lucid dream pattern and it's just relaxing the body and things. Because we don't know we've been sleeping all night until we wake up in the morning, do we?
Well, that's true. I mean, I think it's important to go about astral travel in a relaxed way, because if you start using forced techniques, and there are some techniques that you can use to get into the astral plane, but they're a little bit dodgy. They start using the Kundalini in ways that it shouldn't be used. They use a lot of mantra in India to do astral travel. But I think the best way is really is to do it through sleep. You can do it through meditation, but if you do it through sleep, I always think that state we were talking about before, where you get that point where you're between sleeping and waking, when you start to get that, what I call hypnagogic imagery, you start to see all the imagery. If you can hold your consciousness in that state, and it's really hard to stay in that state, because you're going to either wake up or fall asleep, but there's that in-between state between waking and sleeping.
You kick him out of bed.
Yeah, but if you can get into that state, and your body goes into a very, very deep state of relaxation, so it almost feels like it's uncomfortably relaxed, because it's so relaxed. That is when I feel it happens. It will naturally happen then.
Don't force it.
But like I said, do we really need to physically leave the body to enter the astral plane? Because we can enter that through our own meditation, through our own, our own intuitive meditations, and sleep would take us there anyway, where you can access the Akashic Record, you can access the other worlds, because it'll flash to you anyway in those states.
So it comes to you when you're ready, basically. That's what he's saying.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you can't force spiritual things, For some people, it happens spontaneously and naturally, and that's important then to learn about it, understand that it's okay, not to get frightened, like, we were talking about with the sleep paralysis and so forth. And with all these spiritual things, it's like people want to open the Kundalini, I mean, let it happen. It'll happen naturally. Don't force it. You don't need to use techniques to force it. So I would say the way to get onto the astral plane is to simply be conscious of it, and it will happen spontaneously. You think about it and read about it, and it'll happen, Okay, I'm done.
So it's good night from him, and it's good night from me, and been lovely speaking to all of you. I'm so sorry we can't answer all your questions that's coming up on the screen.
We saw a few of them. You need to get your questions in early. Yeah. And don't forget, please, go and have a look on Amazon Prime, see our Mystic Journey to India. I'm going to keep plugging this because I want people to see it. And we've written lots of books about this topic, and you can get readings through our website, both with Jane and with those people we recommend. So, there it is. That's the plug at the end, I'm afraid. But I am good in that movie, I tell you, aren't I? And Jane is too, because Jane's at the beginning. And we got the bit in there where we give a reading to
Eric
Roberts, Julia Roberts' brother.
Julia Roberts' brother.
Yeah. So
I mean, we've given lots of readings to celebrities, but that's not important. Every human being's important. It comes to God. So
there you go. I'm going to switch it off now. So we're going to say bye-bye, and we'll see you all again soon.
Keep them kisses. Keep it going. That's it.
If you enjoyed this video, then follow Jane and I on our adventures around the world by subscribing. You can click that button, or you can click the little bell thingy on the main page, and then you'll get regular updates every time we upload something new. Like the page, and also make your comments. We look forward to seeing you next time.